Alright, welcome back to another video. I'm Anth. Today I kind of just want to talk about,
We're done.
I don't want to say predictions, but more or less just kind of what I hope to see slash what I expect to see. Yeah, I don't want to say expect. It's more of just what I want to see out of a WoW 2.0. Anyway, what I really kind of want to see out of WoW 2.0, like I said, I think what would be really cool. So first of all, let me just say, again, this is not predictions. I have nothing to go off of as far as info or anything like that. This is just pure speculation slash theory crafting slash hope. Hopium. But anyway, what I think would be really cool in a WoW 2.0, right? So, first of all, updating graphic style, I should say. Graphics are fine. Wow. It's very stylized, and I think it works. I think it's great what they have. And the only thing that I would say is like maybe updating the style, maybe the engine, I don't really know. But basically kind of making WoW on par with something like, I don't know, like Black Desert or something like that. Now, that being said, if we take like Black Desert, stylized graphics, and try to put WoW in there, I think that would be very weird and honestly not great. But changing how WoW looks and maybe just making it look a little bit more, high def, not as stylized as it is. Like, just getting a fresh coat of paint on everything, right? New assets, blah, 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 everything like that, right? So that's kind of, I don't know, the first thing I would hope to see out of a new version of WoW, whatever that may look like, right? Now, the big thing, obviously, story, right? You can talk about gameplay some other day or whatever, maybe. Story-wise, for WoW 2.0. That's, I think, the biggest thing holding Blizzard back from actually doing it. Because it's like, oh, I'm dead. Great. Anyway, I think that's the biggest thing holding WoW back, or Blizzard back from doing it. Because they're like, okay, if we were to do a brand new game, how do we continue the story that's already written, right? And I think the answer to that question is you can't. You really can't. At least not well. It's like, how do you continue this unless they can figure out a way? Gosh. Unless they can figure out a way to somehow port the characters that you have in current WoW to this new WoW 2.0, whatever they decide to do with it, as far as new engine maybe or anything like that. So like, do they continue the story or do they make a brand new story, right? I think it would be a lot easier if they just did a brand new story, but of course I say that, but probably not easy. Easy is probably not the best word to use, but it just makes the most sense. It's probably less work than trying to figure out how to make, how to bring all of these characters from current WoW into WoW 2.0. But let's talk about if they were to do a different story, where it's not just a continuation of current WoW, right? What would that look like? Honestly, I have no idea how they could do this, but what would be really cool, I think, in my opinion, right? What I think would be really cool would be, and hear me out on this, what if they somehow made WoW 2.0 based around the Second War? or the First War, something like that, right? So you're talking like old original Alliance, like Alliance of Lordaeron, right? And then you've got the original Horde, right? How cool would it be to basically take the story of Warcraft 1, 2, and 3 and turn it into World of Warcraft 1, 2, and 3, or whatever, however you want to look at it, right? How cool would it be to play WoW, but go back in time to the time of, you know, Brawl being the original war chief, but also you have Gromosh, and you have Atrigg and Saurfang, and when Cairn first joins the story, you have the original war between the humans and the orcs, right? Like, how cool would that be to play it in the World of Warcraft setting, like an MMO RPG setting, instead of a, you know, what RTS setting, right? Like, how cool would that be to experience it from that perspective, right? And I just, because, okay, I'm a huge Arthas slash Lich King fanboy, right? That was, I'd say Wrath was probably my favorite expansion. I love the story of Arthas. Like, I read the Arthas book whenever it came out, and I fell in love with Arthas as a character. And I'd say that, you know, that being said, he's probably a lot of people's favorite character, right? Not that people can relate to him necessarily, but maybe some people can. Just the idea of sacrifice, you know, ends justify the means kind of thing, right? Like, he literally, his whole objective was trying to find a way to save his people from Scourge, right? Now, granted, he went about it the wrong way and ended up joining the Scourge, but that's not the point. The point is, he felt the need to defend his people at all costs, right?
Let's go.
And I think there's something that, you know, a lot of people can actually relate to with that story. So, I just think it would be really cool to go back into that time and actually see Arthas and work with him. Like, if you're an Alliance player, you're working with Arthas to defend Lordaeron and everything like that. And and you could probably do so. Like, I don't know how to necessarily make this work in a two-faction setting, but let's say you do, you know, Alliance. You can choose Alliance of Lordaeron, where you're a human working with Lordaeron and defending against the Scourge. And this is Warcraft 3, obviously. Warcraft 2, you have, you know, the actual war between the orcs and the humans, and you're kind of focused on that more, right?
If this lesson is anything like the others.
Of course, the biggest hold or drawback, I think, would be the fact that the Horde didn't have as many races, nearly as many races, even as, like, at the launch of Vanilla WoW, right? You didn't have the undead yet, because the Forsaken come after the events of Warcraft 3, right? And even then, that's just when the Forsaken actually become a faction, let alone joining the Horde. So there's not as many playable races for the Horde, and, you know, same goes for the Alliance, right? You have humans, you have dwarves, and to an extent you have elves, right? You don't have the Night Elves, you have the High Elves. The Night Elves were kind of living in isolation at that point, right? Again, if you've played Warcraft 1, 2, and 3, you know the story, or if you've read the book, you know the story, blah, 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 right? But anyway, I just think it would be so cool to play through those games from a World of Warcraft point of view, if that makes any sense. So, just playing through those original stories of basically started the WoW franchise, right? Like, how cool would that be? I don't know. I'm kind of rambling at this point, but that's kind of like option number one, right? You take the story backwards in time, and you're doing Warcraft 1, 2, 3 story in the World of Warcraft setting, right? Or gameplay setting. So, I think kind of option number 2 maybe they could do a completely off the wall story, right? Okay, so option number 2 for WoW 2.0 setting, time setting. What if, and again, this doesn't make sense. It's not doable in the sense of like how WoW is structured with, you know, a 2-faction system, Horde versus Alliance kind of thing, right? So this wouldn't really fit that. But kind of with going back to the whole, you know, Warcraft 1, 2, and 3 story, right? What if we got to play through the original Burning Legion invasion, right? You have Queen Ashara and the Well of Eternity, and she's trying to summon Sargeras and stuff, right? What if we got to play through that story from the WoW perspective, the MMO style RPG gameplay, right, instead of the RTS? I think that would be really Arthas is probably my first favorite character. Second favorite character is Illidan, right? Two sides of the same coin. Well, really, they're not even two sides of the same coin. They're more alike than they are opposite in the sense of sacrifice, you know, ends justify the means kind of thing. Sacrificing everything to save their people, save their world, right? The only difference is, you know, Illidan ends up working for the Burning Legion, dealing with the Scourge, versus Arthas joining the Scourge to try and defend his people against the Scourge, right? So, very similar characters in that sense. Illidan has his big redemption arc. Arthas never got his redemption arc. Well, I guess technically with Shadowlands, he kind of got a redemption, but not really. It was just more of a, oh, it's all fractured and everything, and this is all that's left of him now. It's not really a redemption. But anyway, how cool would it be to just see Illidan while he was a mage, right? And I know we got to see some of that in Legion with some, like, instanced gameplay scenarios and everything like that. And we got to see a little bit of the original Legion invasion with that, but also, like, the time-walking dungeons when you're actually defending against Archimonde at the World Tree. It's just like, I would just love to see WoW brought back to that, right? Brought back to, maybe, I guess it's roots or something like that. So option 1 and 2, as far as story setting, it's kind of the same thing. It's two different, you know, two different expansions, right? You know, so you start with World of Warcraft 1, and it's Warcraft 1 story. World of Warcraft, the next expansion is Warcraft 2, and the next expansion is Warcraft 3, right? And you can even break it down into the expansions like, you know, the actual Warcraft expansions themselves, because, you know, originally you didn't have they were broken down like, what, the Frozen Throne, I know, was an expansion for Warcraft 3, I can't remember what else and everything like that, but you get what I'm saying. So I just think that would be super cool. And I'm not versed enough in current WoW lore to be able to kind of theory craft about a potential future or current setting World of Warcraft, right? Like, I can't even begin to try and think like, oh, this would be super cool. It'd be like after the Last Titan, we, you know, did this. Like, I have no idea what's going to happen after Last Titan. And I'm pretty sure Blizzard doesn't really know either. At least, you know, they have an idea of what they want to do, but it's probably not set in stone yet. Because I feel like what we've seen so far with Midnight is just kind of like them going back and bringing back old characters. So if you haven't seen the newest raid ending cinematic or whatever, right? Fight the, spoiler alert, fight the void corrupted Naru, comes out of Illyria, and Xalatath, after we kill the Naru, is just like, oh, you know, whatever, it's not really essential to my plan. My plan is going to come to fruition with or without that Naru. So, you know, you failed, champions of Azeroth. And all that, and then all of a sudden, out of the shadows, literally the Shadowlands, Sylvanas comes in and shoots an arrow at Xalatath, right? So it's like,
This is
what?
one of the fragments
What?
that we're looking for.
You know, she was trapped in the maw, and now she can come
Piece
out
of armor
and
or
shoot an
shield.
arrow at Xalatath for some
I'm out
reason.
of range.
Doesn't really make much sense. I think they're just bringing back characters at this point for the sake of clout. I don't know. But
I must get closer.
it's like, it doesn't make sense. Why would they do that? I think they're really just trying to, like, I don't think they know exactly what they're planning on doing. And they're kind of, I don't want to say they're making it up as they go, and I'm not trying to, like, dog on the writers or anything like that, because, you know, it's still a great game. It's still a great story, and obviously I am enjoying it, or else I wouldn't be playing it. So I think, but I do think that it's kind of feels rushed almost. I don't know. Just bringing Sylvanas back just really everyone, I think. So I really don't know what's gonna happen after Last Titan, because the whole story of Last Titan, or the what's the word I'm looking? The implication of Last Titan is like Azeroth. It literally is the Last Titan. We know that from lore, right? We know from Chris Metzen, somebody in Blizzard, that the Last Titan is supposed to be us versus the Titans, right? Basically, everything that we thought we knew about the Titans, it's gonna come out and totally be like, oh my gosh, they're not just this benevolent. They're not this group of benevolent beings that want life, right? They are the lawful, almost lawful evil. But I don't know if lawful evil. It's not lawful good. It would be like lawful neutral. And I guess you could say like Burning Crusade, like the Legion was like lawful evil, right? But the Titans aren't necessarily the total opposite and lawful good. I think they're more lawful neutral. And they just want their plans to come to fruition, right? It's not necessarily about actually spreading life across the universe, right? And I think we kind of see that in, Cold War, whenever we fight Algalon. And literally they were talking about purging Azeroth because it ended up being not how they actually it to turn out. Something like that, right? It's been a while since I did the old war, but anyway, you kind of get the idea, right? They're not just, their ultimate goal is not just about spreading life. It's more spreading order, and how they view order is the biggest thing, right? It's not just order for the sake of order. It's order in their perspective, their vision of what order should be like, right? And I mean, that's kind of why their original creation obviously wasn't, fleshly beings. It was the earthen or storm rot or whatever, like the iron dwarves and the earthen, the earthen Vrykul and all that stuff, right? So again, I mean, the whole, they call it the curse of flesh thing, that was from the old gods. It wasn't even from what's it called?
Just like the Sons of Lothar.
It wasn't even from the Titans. They didn't plan on giving us a sure would. So anyway, I think the Last Titan, it could end with this literal like awakening of Azeroth, and shattering of the world, because Azeroth is literally the world soul. So like, if you're awakening Azeroth, how does it make sense that we would literally still have a world to walk on if he's a Titan and wakes up, right? It doesn't make sense. I mean, maybe they'll figure it out, or maybe I'm just, I don't know enough about Titan lore to make that assumption, right? It's the idea of like, oh, just because the Titan's awoken doesn't mean the whole planet is destroyed and now there's just some walking celestial being, right? Maybe it's not that cut and dry. But and maybe that's just my Marvel, the little bit of Marvel knowledge that I have coming through, right? But anyway, I don't know what could happen after Last Titan. It's really up in the air.
I've studied the Second War. But to everyone
what's
here,
left
it's more than
after
history.
that, right?
They lived
So like,
through it.
what big world-ending threats are there at this point? So
This
Midnight
whole
is,
expedition
you
has
know,
something to do
going
with my
to
father, doesn't it?
the whole thing with Midnight is light versus void, right? So if at the end of Midnight we get through and it's just we realize the light is just as potentially evil as the void, right? We fight the void, we end up fighting the light at some point, I'm sure of that, right? So okay, we've done that now. We've defeated the Burning Legion, right? And at this point, of course, the Scourge is defeated or contained or whatever for the most part. At this point, what big world-ending threat is there for us? The Titans, obviously, and that's what we're gonna fight in the Last Titan. So
The Second War ended
what
decades
then?
ago.
Like after
I
we
won't
defeat
let
the
them
Titans,
shatter the
what's
peace he bled
left?
for.
I don't know how they can really move on. Like, what's the next big story? What's the next big threat? I don't know. If you have any idea, let me know in the comments. Let's start a discussion. I love talking about potential futures. You know, what is it? Fan theory crafting. Stuff that will obviously probably never actually happen the way we expect it to, but like it's cool to talk about and cool to think about. I don't know, I'm just that kind of person, right? But just let me know what you guys think in the comments and we can start a big discussion and just talk about what our predictions are for, you know, the future of WoW after the Last Titan, right? I think it's going to be great either way, but I also think it's going to be something that none of us expected, right?
I need to target something
So,
first.
anyway, this is Ant. I hope you enjoyed my rambling at this point. Let me know if you want me to make any more videos about certain topics or that. I've been playing WoW for a long time, and I feel like I kind of have a pretty good understanding of it. Pretty good with air quotes. But let me know if you want me to make a video about, you know, what, going into more detail of what I think, you know, could be WoW 2.0 in all of these different scenarios that I've talked about so far. So, anyway, this is Ant, signing out.